Nachos amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time, something akin to a book club, but for music. I'm Petey Rave, and I'm excited for this one. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my quorum. We've got David.
Hi.
Yes. We've got Brett.
I'm going to cheer up this stream by showing you. I don't know whose it is in my house, but I believe it is a 510 vape pen that has Jar Jar Binks sticker on it.
I thought you said we were going to cheer them up.
You can't beat this. Jar Jar Binks sticker on a vape pen.
Yes. And last but not least, we have Drew.
Really weird you bring a vape to the album with this title on it.
Yes. We're here to talk about music. We're here to talk about an album, and I'm provider of the album this week. And we're going to be talking about an album. We're bringing back a group that has been, I think the show has been fond of every time I bring them up. And I thought I would bring them back since they've decided to be able to kind of release a new album after kind of being a little bit away from actively releasing music after the whole 37 project. We're talking about Love Stereo and their new album, from their newest album. I think it was just from this past year, called Xennials. Let's talk about expectations coming into this album. Let's go with Brett. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, let me so this is a lovely change. Like, normally when I get an album from the late, it's either something that is calling back to something from long ago, or it's something I've never heard of. Whereas this is something I have heard, but I haven't heard since. I haven't listened to Love Stereo since the last album we reviewed of theirs. And so I kind of had enough of a memory of enjoying and knowing I'm probably going to be touching some indie rock. It's probably going to have some 2021 going on in it. Indie rock with lady vocals kind of stuff. I know that, but my memory was not so strong that I knew exactly how those pieces were exactly put together. So coming to this, I was always down. This is better than a Hulk Hogan rap album any day of the week.
Yes. David, what expectations did you have coming into this album? Oh, you muted.
All right. So I feel like it's probably time for me to up my medication dosage, because I know for a fact that Love Stereo has been on this podcast before.
Yeah.
And I know I have listened to them before. But when I tried to recall my expectations, as this podcast is formatted, I was kind of drawing a blank, as if I hadn't heard them before. I knew that they were kind of a indie rock / electropop kind of gimmick, and that's sort of what I was expecting. I was expecting short, jammy songs that you could sit in your chair and bop to, which is fine. And things that would sound really good in headphones, really well produced, and nothing wrong with that.
Drew, what expectations did you have coming to this album?
Well, it's Love Stereo, and I do remember them. They're probably one of my favorites that I've found because of this. Probably listen to them less than the other one that I always think of when I think of bands that I absolutely love because of this.
Rush.
Wondering
Rush.
when Bad Rabbits is coming out with something new. And yes, Rush, the band I've never heard of
anything
before.
New, sorry. That ship has sailed.
But so I was like the other guys have said, it's an indie rock duo. They have a lot of electronic style instrumentation and influences. So I was expecting that upbeat, well produced. Was expecting maybe a tempo that I didn't get, but we'll get into that. But something that I could really sink my teeth into and have some fun with.
Yeah. Love Exterior. I think Love Exterior tap into something that just kind of like I connect with, and I think it probably has to do with the fact that they're both only a couple years older than I am. Hence the name Xennials for the album. It's like it taps into that. So they probably draw from a lot of the same influences. The duo that we're talking about with Love Exterior, we're talking about Aniko at vocals and a lot of things, instruments and synthesizers and whatnot, but she's going to be the prominent one in the vocals. And Toby Huang, who's the back end guy who's playing bass, guitar, a bunch of other things, drum machines and things like that. It's Annie having been as a kid who grew up in the 90s, older than I am, and she grew up in she spent quite a bit of time in California, so she draws from a lot of those influences, and so does Toby, bringing in some of the influences that he brings in. They'll throw in, they used to do a lot more punk and a lot more heavier indie rock, but now they've kind of like mellowed it out into more of a synth sound. And with this album, you're getting into more of the indie synth pop style. You're getting a little bit more of a vibey feel. You're getting more of an atmospheric feel. They do kind of like go into different vibes with that. They kind of start, they go from being playful to being a little bit more atmospheric, a little bit then going to like something more bouncy, then something going a little bit more intense and kind of like dense. They love to kind of play around with the various toys. I love watching them following them on Instagram. You get to see them like play with the various synthesizers and like effects things that they own in their studio, and kind of experiment with those. And they love to experiment, but they don't overdo it. They kind of like they don't like throw a multitude of ideas on top of each other. They kind of have they're prone to experimentation, but they always tend to hone it into something really tight and really nice ideas, really nice themes. The they use of the synths, use of like really cool bass, some drums, either machine like or actual drums, and it's just a good vibe, and it's really cool and just fun to listen to and just bop your head to. But yeah, let's go to you guys. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, I mean, it's more of the there is the indie, less punk, but more of like the like straight indie, a little bit of like a disco feel at sometimes, but holy crap, there's some synths. A lot of them, and like it's more than what you would expect from a well, who knows, this is a very modern album, maybe everybody's going to be doing this, but like you get your guitars that are really crisp and chimey, you get a bass guitar that does more than replacement level bass guitar, but the synths, especially the way that the synths like fill outside of the vocals, and hang out. Like they actually, like you could do this album completely and take a lot of the synth work out, but it'd be a different thing because it actually does add something to the album, and it really fattened it up. But like, it's a tight, under 30 minutes album. It doesn't stick around too long. It has quite a few different sounds that are coming out. Each song is kind of its own thing. But man, also, they put filters on the drums. Anytime there's like a swoosh or like a phase or like a a wah or something on the beat, I'm always down. But like they definitely did not feel afraid to bring the bleeps and the bloops.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
and at times they may have done some things. I will, when we get into songs, I will talk to you exactly about what I was reminded of.
Yes. David, how would you describe this album musically?
This album reminds me of the debut album of an artist that I'm a big fan of, that I'm going to talk about later when we get into the tracks we like the most. But it was very reminiscent of a style of music that is atmospheric, but not in the pure moods enigma kind of way.
Sail away, sail away, sail away.
As we come back from the Orinoco flow, I will say that there's definitely some things that are very, not even 2021, but 2010s and late 20 teens that is on this album. And I really am interested in how you guys will react when I bring up the one particular artist this album reminded me of.
Mm-hmm. Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, the thing is about Love X Stereo. I don't think they've missed. This is definitely like feels like a bit of a departure, but in some really good ways. Definitely more chill. In my opinion, than their other stuff. The synths are super good. Their use of everything there. It definitely gave. Whereas before, I'd give this to somebody with like indie rock intentions. With this, you almost have to set them up a little bit differently than before. Not that it's any less good, or I'd give it like suggested to different people. But this is definitely like feels more like that city pop sort of feel than anything else as far as like the synths and the musicality goes. The vocals are always a joy. And the production work. Like I always say, whenever Petey brings anything from South Korea, it's always the production work is immaculate to the point of almost parody at a certain point.
Yeah. And yeah, you brought up the vocals. I forgot to bring up the vocals. Annie's voice is just fantastic. And she just has a fantastic grasp of having the right tone for the mood or the setting of the song that needs it. And it's just fantastic. And as we get into some of the key tracks, we start. I would say there's only like 7 songs on the album. It's not a very long album as far as like track amount. So I'll focus on. I like the nice little core in the middle of 3 songs, which starts with the second track, Wondrous, which has just a really nice build up with the synth in the beginning, supported by this drum synth. It's like synth intro with the drum synth. It's all kind of built around and kind of like it doesn't rush things. It takes its time to kind of get into the climax of it all. But I think it's really nice, and like the verses are nice, and like it just the wordplay is fun. Then it kind of gets followed up by Push to Play, which is a little bit more of like a electronic pop and funk kind of feel to it. The bass is really nice on it, and the just Annie is just fantastic on it. Like the way she kind of like sings on it, just fantastic. Especially it just takes you along for the ride, and then that gets followed up really nicely by Rebel Dress, which is like Rebel Dress and Kid from the Future. I think they work together, but Rebel Dress, yeah, it's a little bit more of a darker, defiant, sultry track. Has a little bit more of an attitude to it. Annie kind of goes lower on it with her vocals, and just the atmosphere is just really nice on it. and it's just that there's bangers all throughout, but I think that one, if I would say take a slice, it'd be those three tracks concurrently. But every track is amazing. Let's go to you guys for key tracks. Brett, what would be the key tracks for you?
Well, I'm just gonna start in the middle as you did. Rebel Dress. It opens up with that reverbed out like snare synth beat thing going on, but then it turns into like a late '80s Don Henley song. Like it definitely has some of that going on. Whereas Kid from the Future was like to like throw me into a time machine and spit me out in 2003 and hand a Yeah Yeah Yeahs album and like tell me to go sit down for a minute and comprehend music as a different thing. Very, very different stuff. Like also I wanted to talk about Cell Theory. Cell Theory. They brought a bass guitar to this show. So there's some of that. Again, above replacement level. But yeah, there are bangers up and through. But there are only 7 songs. So which ones did you pick, David?
David, what would be some of the
is it a 4A level bass guitar, Brett? Is it 4A, or do you think it's ready for the big leagues?
No, it could probably pick, if it's playing in Korea, it's doing too well. It's probably if it's it made a little more time in Japan, if they're Yomiuri, that they can sit. But the bass guitar is definitely above Bush League.
Okay, take it.
It's better than high A.
This is not your hobby grade.
No, this is bespoke, coach built bass guitar.
Yes, bespoke bass. But yeah, David,
Bespoke
what would be
bass.
some of the what would be the key tracks for you?
Wondrous, I think, is the track that really defines the album. It is an example of beauty in simplicity, and it works. And that's kind of going to be my overall theme for this album. Push the Play deviates from the first 2 tracks into a disco-influenced, almost organic sound as opposed to the first 2 tracks. And I think my one big negative about this album really sticks out here, but I'll talk about it when we conclude. Rebel Dress was the first song on the album that really felt to me like it had a beginning, middle, and an end, and I really liked that one. Now, Cell Theory. To all of my fellow Poppy seeds out there, all of us fans of Poppy, Cell Theory was the song that reminded me of Poppy's debut album, Poppy.Computer. It had those dark synth pop vibes that were a little subversive, and it was nothing like her current screamy metal, occasional seasoning of Opeth influence as she's going through right now. But yeah, this reminded me of Poppy.Computer, Cell Theory. And I will talk about my overall bugaboo with this album when we conclude.
You've got a bugaboo?
I do.
Drew, how would you? What would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, for me, 16. Something about 16 was just very calming. Something about the nature of it. And sort of got that atmospheric sound in really quick. Push the Play. David mentioned, I will mention again. It definitely stood out for being a little bit different from the rest of it, but still great, still really solid. Something about the plucky nature of it definitely gave me that like sort of 80s, almost R&B feel to it in the guitar. The like palm mute in that. And then verses. The last track sounded like the coolest bar in the worst dystopian like cyberpunk city, and it was great.
Yeah, it just had a nice atmosphere to it. It's just so dope. Yeah, let's bring it back around the horn and talk about some conclusive thoughts. Brett, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I mean, this is about what I would expect from a band that I remember enjoying and being a genre that I can get down with. Like if you're not into, like, mountains of synthesizers and like the more poppy driving beats with your indie, like, you may not like it as much, but you're wrong. This is good. I had a good time with it, but like, yeah, like it's a 20 some minute investment. You can listen to it and make your own opinion. But this is a good attempt. This is a good showing. I can hold with it.
Yes.
There it is.
Yes. David, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I liked the 20-something minutes that was presented here. I'm not sure if everything should have been shorter or if they should have taken more time kind of putting it together, because, and here is where I feel like my problem is. This is a very short album of 7 tracks. A lot of the tracks feel like they start, they get going, they get into a good place, and they just kind of stop or don't go anywhere. Like I said, Rebel Dress was the only song on this that really felt fully formed, like a complete beginning, middle, and an end. The rest of the album really never got out of second gear for me, track by track. I liked what was here, and I would have loved more. This is a 28-minute album. This could have been a 50-minute album, and I would have absolutely loved it. I would be giving it a glowing review. But it felt uncooked, which is why I was making sure my meatloaf was done when I went away and pulled it out of the oven. I wanted to make sure that it was all the way cooked.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Mm-hmm.
The vibe here on a lot of these tracks is really good, and I wanted more. And that might be my one big thing on this album.
Yeah.
I liked it, and I wanted more, and it just felt like they didn't finish the job.
Okay.
Gotta finish that meatloaf, kids.
Yes.
You
Finish
need
your
to,
meatloaf.
all of
Loaf.
Paradise by the Dashboard
Pinch off
Light.
that meatloaf.
I liked the first 2 courses of the meal. I'm waiting for
You gotta pinch it
the
off.
dessert.
There ain't no way I'm ever gonna love you.
Where's the salad? Where's the dessert? Like this the first 2 courses were great.
Yes. Drew, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
This is going to be something that goes into my rotation of I need something on at work. What do I want? Which sometimes I'm looking for almost exactly this. Is something that Love X Stereo I always find appealing. Like, they're really good at what they do. I can see what David's saying. There is some meandering that happens throughout the album, where it feels like it's on a track, but it doesn't really know where it's going. That said, I kind of enjoyed it for that. And I think that it's something that every time I listen to Love X Stereo, they're great. It's just this time they're not only great, but different than they were the last time I got them. Mm-hmm. And to me, that signals that if they're going to start trying like a lot of cool new things, like, I'm super down. Like, one of my favorite things in the world was the Mars Volta, and that was at the drive-in experimenting with something radically different than they were. Let's not say radically different, but pretty different than what they were doing before. Concept albums were not exactly at the drive-in's wheelhouse. So if this is them going, hey, we're going to try something, I'm here for it.
Fuck around and find out.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's a lot of what I kind of like agree with. This is just a really nice exploration of sounds from a band that I love. Love Exterior has consistently been just a quality in every release, and this is no exception. I think the fact that the one complaint that I think is very valid is just wanting more and wanting just a more full version of this is definitely understandable, but it goes to show what is here already like in this album. It is, and I think it is, and I think it's definitely a product of them coming off of what was a crazy big project with the 37 series, which is like 3 albums of them exploring at first like releasing basically a song a month, exploring sounds that they weren't that they would have originally discarded or kind of like gone away with, and it was very ambitious, very putting out a lot of music. So I can definitely understand this being kind of like a breath and like just a smaller, more smaller project and a transitional project. But it does have the byproduct of that is that it can, I think it's fair to say that, you know, it could leave you wanting more. But the fact that it leaves you wanting more is the fact that it leaves you wanting more is because it's what here is so fantastic and it's so well thought out and so well executed. Annie and Toby are really super talented and really fantastic at the sounds that they deliver, and I think more people should be listening to them, and I want everyone to like know how awesome they are. And if there's one thing I could do for this show is they're like one of my couple of projects. The more people should know Love Exterior. I know I influence nobody, but if I could at least like get, I'm glad that at least I got a couple of people, just at the very least, just my co-hosts on the show to get into Love Exterior. Which is, you know what, that's fine with me. But I hope that more people can get into them because they're super talented, and more people should love them. But yeah, my conclusion is it's a really nice transition to what is hopefully going to be a really nice future for Love Exterior as performers. Yeah, now we get to the main event of the evening, the moment we've all been waiting for.
Art,
true art. In our haiku reviews, where we sum it all up in poetic form with the 575. Let's get it started. Brett, what's your haiku?
I'm bringing all 17. Checks all the boxes. More of what I expected. And some new sounds, too.
Mm-hmm. David, what is your haiku?
Really good synth pop. Songs feel a bit unfinished. Good, but not quite great.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what is your haiku? You did.
Figured that out a couple
Yes.
of words in, because Skype was like, "Hey, yo, dumbass." An old favorite simply doesn't miss a beat. Will always love it.
Mm-hmm. My haiku, a tight synth pop vibe from a pair of skilled songsmiths. Saranghamida.
Is that like one of those fan things that y'all do?
Just I love you in Korean.
Oh, okay.
Heart.
And then a noise that goes.
You could do it like you're shooting an arrow.
Like your gizmo.
Yeah, those are our thoughts on Love Exterior's Xennials. Fantastic album. Go check it out. It's on our Spotify playlist. play Record Breakers the home game or Record Breakers the playlist. There's 2 playlists. One has our episodes and mixed, kind of shuffled in alongside the albums.
One is the away game.
Listen to the ones with Patrick. They're great. They're way better.
But yeah, they have the episodes in there, and one of them doesn't have the episodes. It depends, depending on your flavor. But yeah, go check them out. That'll be on there. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record, and that'll be provided by David. David, what have you got for us next week?
Petey, I try not to bring on too many groups or artists that I just go out of my way to gush about, because that can get just silly sometimes. I try not to do that. But given the timing of the album release, I think I'm going to bring my number 1 musical hero, Jem Godfrey. Songwriter, BBC jingle artist, and leader of the band Frost, who one day decided, I'm kind of tired of pop music and jingles and just kind of being around the world of mainstream music. Progressive rock, that's what I'll do! And I'm going to bring Frost's brand new album, Day and Age.
Oh, yeah, look forward to that. That'll be next week. For that, but that'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can of course find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM.
Don't follow me. Don't.
What's the thing?
Don't
David
do
is
him at.
It's roasting motherfuckers on sports Twitter.
Yes. It's pretty fantastic. David is at Call Me DJM. Brett is at HibbityBird, HIBBITYBBITBRD. Drew is at X. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelly.net for this and other shows. Rebelly TV on YouTube and on Twitch. You can follow us on Twitch. We stream live Tuesdays through Fridays. We do D&D on Tuesdays. Record Breakers, this podcast you listen to on Wednesdays live. Space Trucking on Thursdays. We're doing Starbound. Having fantastic fun. And of course, my PD plays on Fridays. Keep an eye out. I'm kind of experimenting with earlier times, so maybe I can do longer streams without tuckering out. We'll see. At least until maybe I get employed again. But yeah, I'm still playing Mass Effect, so keep an eye out for more Mass Effect goodness and more Shepard shenanigans. Yeah, like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Enjoy yourselves, you scum.
Annyeong.
Are you allowed to say suck it on Twitch?
No.
Fighting.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.